300 million. That is the number of copies sold. It has surpassed Tetris. It has conquered every single platform. It is the best-selling piece of interactive media in human history. And it is built entirely out of low-resolution digital blocks. But behind this infinite digital landscape, there is a profound and unaddressed contradiction. How exactly did a solitary developer build an infinite universe that brought so much communal joy to the entire world, yet ultimately find himself completely alone?
The paradox of creation, deconstructing Minecraft.
Welcome back to Learning with Pratik. If you're new here, I try to increase neuroplasticity by exploring a new topic every day. I do all the reading and researching, so you don't have to. In today's explainer, we are diving deep into the paradox of Minecraft. Chapter 1. The blank canvas. So to really wrap our heads around the scale of this whole phenomenon, we have to travel back to the late 2000s. Back then, the video game industry was basically dominated by massive corporations, pumping out highly structured linear experiences. But quietly, this undercurrent was forming, the independent or indie game movement. Small teams, and sometimes literally just one individual, realized that technical limitations could actually force some truly extraordinary systemic creativity. Instead of relying on hundreds of millions of dollars to craft cinematic stories, these developers began prioritizing player agency and emergent gameplay. They built complex systems that allowed players to learn through raw experimentation. It was a real game changer. And here's where a very specific timeline of inspiration kicks in. In the spring of 2009, an independent developer from the Pacific Northwest named Zachary Barth released a free block-building competition game called Infiniminer. Its source code was eventually hacked, which led Barth to abandon the project entirely. But, and this is a big but, a Swedish programmer named Markus Persson, better known online as Notch, played it. Notch immediately realized this blocky, open-world concept was exactly what he wanted to create. By May of 2009, he released a Java-based prototype called Cave Game. Fast forward to 2011, it launched officially as Minecraft, and by 2012, the cultural footprint was so massive that a documentary about the studio's first year raised over $200,000 on Kickstarter. Chapter 2. Generating Infinite Worlds. Now, you might be wondering, how exactly does one person code an entire infinite universe? When you step into a new Minecraft world, it feels meticulously crafted, right? Yet it is generated entirely by mathematics in real time. It's like a giant puzzle. The underlying procedural generation begins with something called Perlin noise. Think of it as a type of randomness that creates a smooth mathematical gradient, much like a smoothed-out version of TV static. But that alone is way too uniform. So the engine layers multiple maps on top of each other, creating fractal noise for rougher detail. It then calculates values for continentalness and erosion, mapping out deep oceans and flat plains. Finally, to achieve those iconic, gravity-defying floating islands and deep cave networks, the engine introduces 3D noise, basically carving out the terrain from the inside. Okay, so once this foundational terrain is carved, the game's engine has to decorate it. It does this by crossing intersecting data points, temperature, humidity, and even a metric simply called weirdness. Yeah, weirdness. If you spawn in an area with low temperature, high humidity, and high weirdness, you might suddenly find yourself in a totally unpredictable landscape, like towering ice spikes. It is just a brilliant system that ensures absolutely no two worlds are ever exactly the same. It creates a literal blank canvas for every single player. Chapter 3. The YouTube Revolution. But this infinite canvas didn't just stay on players' hard drives. It birthed an entirely new form of media consumption. Minecraft YouTube, or MCYT, evolved incredibly fast. In the early 2010s, it was really defined by single-player survival playthroughs and those highly produced pop song parodies. Remember the viral hit Fallen Kingdom? However, in 2016, YouTube instituted strict new ad policies, the adpocalypse. Demonetization heavily impacted the gaming community, and Minecraft content temporarily faded from the mainstream spotlight. The silence didn't last, though. During the 2020 lockdowns, a profound revival occurred, spearheaded by a private multiplayer server called the Dream SMP. What started as simple collaborative gameplay transformed into a sprawling, scripted geopolitical drama. Creators like Tommy Innit integrated warring factions, elections, and a system of canon lives. It was unscripted acting meeting systemic design. The result? A live stream finale that pulled in 650,000 concurrent viewers, ranking among the most viewed Twitch streams in history. Chapter 4. The Corporate Era. As the culture around the game reached these unprecedented heights, the independent project had simply grown far too massive for its original architect. In 2014, the technology world was completely stunned when Microsoft acquired Mojang, the studio behind Minecraft, for $2.5 billion. That is a lot of zeros. For Markus Persson, this wasn't just a business deal, it was an escape hatch. The weight of his own creation had simply become too much. Under Microsoft, the game's architecture had to be reconciled. See, Minecraft had splintered. The original PC version ran on Java, while the mobile and console versions ran on a totally separate C++ codebase. Microsoft's solution in 2017 was a massive unification effort, pulling consoles and mobile devices under the C++ umbrella, now known as the Bedrock Edition. This allowed for seamless cross-platform play while simultaneously preserving the original Java edition for legacy PC users and modders. Chapter 5: The Creator's Paradox. While the code was unified and the corporate infrastructure solidified, we really have to return to the human element of this story. What exactly happens when a personal passion project scales to infinity? Persson stated it pretty plainly. I don't want to be a symbol of something I don't understand. I'm just a programmer, not a businessman. He handed lead development over to Jens Bergensten, completely dissociated himself from Microsoft's brand, and retreated from the public eye. With a newfound fortune, he purchased a $70 million mansion in Beverly Hills. Yet, in 2015, he posted a stark observation on social media, writing, "Sitting alone at home with a computer and a TV, and yet the feeling is one of emptiness." Over time, his public remarks became increasingly provocative and polarizing, alienating him further from the community he birthed. The man who designed the ultimate communal sandbox found himself deeply isolated in the real world. And yet, the legacy of the code itself remains totally untouched. As game designer Peter Molyneux noted, the game succeeded because it rejected complacent linear design. It gave us back the creative freedom of our childhoods. It became a platform for education, architecture, and incredible storytelling. It transcended its creator entirely. So, I leave you with this question to discuss in the comments below. In an infinite digital world, where players build their own narratives and systems generate endless terrain, who truly owns the creation once the blocks are placed? Does it belong to the architect who wrote the code, or the millions of minds who breathe life into it every single day? Thanks for watching. Tomorrow we open a different page. Until then, Pratik, out.